Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, Dr. Foley.
President Kaler, members of the board, please let the record show that all members are present.
Thank you so much. We are going to have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And I do hear a major echo in the microphone. Not sure if that can be addressed. Thank you. Okay, so as soon as we open up this meeting, at this time, the meeting will recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the proposed revision to the expenditure budget for the 2022-2023 school year in accordance with ARS 15-905.01DE. Members of the audience are invited to make comments and ask questions during the public hearing. Dr. Foley.
President Kaler, members of the board, as you know, we have been talking an awful lot about our budget. And as you know, you have met and approved this budget, and statutorily you are required to do so by a certain date. And then the state legislature actually within days of you finalizing this passed the budget. So our CFO wanted us to be sure that because we had estimated below what actually was, that we want to make sure that our budget actually captures all of that. As you know, our Tyler Moore tonight is proudly representing us at the state conference for business officials, but he has put together a presentation similar to as he has provided before to explain the updates. He is also, my understanding, joining us telephonically if we have additional questions, but we will play his presentation so that we can provide the input of the adjustments to reflect the changes that came from the state budget.
Good evening, Governing Board President Kaler, members of the board. I will be presenting the 2022-2023 budget revision number 1 virtually this evening. The Arizona school budget timeline should look familiar to you. Shortly after our district approved our adopted budget, the state approved the 2023 K-12 budget. In that budget, there was language that allowed school districts the opportunity to revise their budgets prior to August 1st and adjust their tax levy. Higley has elected to pursue this option in order to capture the increases in budget capacity from the K-12 budget bill and ensure the tax rate accurately reflects the expenditure budget. As a reminder, the 2023 adopted budget included the following highlights. No anticipated additional COVID relief grant funding. However, we did in fiscal year 23 have a second retention stipend previously budgeted of $1,500 pre-tax. Arizona schools will again face potential cuts from the aggregate expenditure limit in 2023. AEL conversations have not taken place yet, as previously discussed. It was expected a quick session would be called after the K-12 budget was passed in order to fix the AEL limit for 2023, but that has not taken place yet. ASRS contribution rates have slightly reduced in this budget. M&O to capital transfer of $4.4 million. That is to cover the annual payment for our middle school leases. That must be paid from the capital fund. In addition, from some of the K-12 budget increases, we are transferring an additional $3.6 million for unallocated capital contingency. This transfer is to set aside contingency in case the November election, or Higley Unified is proposing a bond for $77 million, fails to pass. If that bond were to pass, we will transfer the money back to M&O for its original purpose. Higley is also moving to its self-insurance plan. We are estimating a budget savings of over $500,000. And again, this plan included no increases to employee medical contributions, but some voluntary changes. Next, I want to highlight the K-12 budget that was just passed by the legislature, as that is one of the main reasons why we're doing a revision this early in the year. First, $525 million was added to the base. The new base level support for public schools is $4,775.27. That bill also repealed teacher compensation, which was a weighted add-on to the base level support. Next, $100 million was added to increase special education and the various Group B weights listed below. TSL, or Transportation Support Level, had a slight increase. The K-12 budget added a new ELL weight, also called the Opportunity or Poverty weight, for fiscal year 23. That was approximately $50 million statewide. District Additional Assistance, better known as Capital, saw an increase of $60 million statewide. This is the first increase to the capital fund since 2008-2009. There were also several other additional funding increases, not as large in scale. Lastly, Arizona approved the largest expansion towards privatizing education in the nation. The Empowerment Scholarship Account, ESA as we like to call it, now provides $7,000 to K-12 families looking to pay for private school tuition. Higley and all public schools are only being funded at 2/3 of what the ESA voucher now provides. I will note this expansion is being challenged and several education groups are looking to take the expansion to the ballot this November. Next, let's look at the impact of the K-12 budget bill and the proposed budget revision. First, looking at the M&O fund, we adopted a general budget limit of $116.9 million. That JBL included projecting no increase to ADM in 2023, inflation projected at 2%, as well as my conservative estimates of 3% to the base. Assume the M&O transfer of 4.4 for our middle school leases, as well as the additional 3.6 for unallocated capital contingency, the reduction in ASRS percentage, and the estimated budget balance carry forward of $22 million, approximately 19.5%. Looking at the budget revision, we can see that we're revising up to $2.1 million, approximately 1.8%. This budget revision takes into consideration the K-12 budget bill. It also still notes that we are no current exemptions to the AEL, and the additional increases will be added to the budget balance carry forward for fiscal year 23. Still looking at the budget revision, but now for the capital fund, we can see that we adopted a JBL in the capital fund of $23.1 million. That took into consideration the same assumptions. One thing I want to highlight is that did take into consideration the additional increase of 3.6 for unallocated. Looking at the budget revision, we'll see an adopted versus revised increase of approximately $5.8 million, which is approximately 25%. This increase takes into consideration several things. One, the K-12 budget bill, and truing up the actual increases, the additional 3.6 for unallocated capital contingency, as well as we're taking the opportunity to revise some of our estimated ending balances, which caused the K-12 budget to have a bigger carry forward for fiscal year 23. You'll see an estimated unallocated budget for the capital budget going into 2023 of $9.8 million. Again, this amount is higher than what we've tried to limit this fund to, but with the uncertainty of our November election, we are holding this money to address any immediate capital needs for our school facilities pending the bond is not passed. Working with our Maricopa County School Superintendent's Office, I was able to receive our 2023 preliminary tax rates, taking into consideration this 2023 budget revision that we're presenting tonight. I wanted to take the opportunity to compare those rates to the last 2 fiscal years. Looking at the table presented, you'll see in 2020-2021, the district property tax rate was reduced 2.04% from the previous fiscal year. In 2021-2022, we saw a drastic decrease of approximately 8.52%. And again, in 2022-2023, the preliminary tax rate is showing again a decrease, albeit smaller, of 0.44%. Over the last 2 fiscal years, the district has seen a substantial growth in assessed valuation. That is the total value of all residence, industrial, commercial, and agricultural property. I foresee this assessed valuation of the district to continue to increase over the next 5 to 10 years, especially as our boundaries continue to be built out. This means you should also expect a similar trend in the tax rate. In this budget revision, the 2022-2023 average teacher salary is the same as presented in the adopted. The average salary of all teachers employed in fiscal year 23 will be approximately $65,717, a 6% increase from the prior year. As a reminder, while we provided a 7% compensation increase, the previous teacher salary calculation included components that not all teachers received and therefore inflated the calculation. The district took the opportunity during this adopted 2023 budget to reset the calculation to a more appropriate definition that includes all employees who provide instruction to students. Our average teacher salaries calculation now includes the base salary and the classroom site fund. Finally, we'll look at the 2022-2023 budget calendar. That now includes the proposed, adopted, and revised budget. On June 8th, the district proposed the budget. We used a conservative budget estimate based on the active K-12 budget conversations in the legislature. On June 28th, the board approved the adopted expenditure budget using those same conservative budget estimates. And now today, on July 20th, the district is revising its 2023 budget revision number 1, to capture the K-12 budget bill and correct the 2022-2023 tax levy.
Any questions?
Any questions from the
President
board?
Kayla.
Go ahead.
Dr. Foley, one of the slides was not there that they had shown. If there's a way that you could put that up, that would be great. It was the green slide. I don't know. The tax rate. If that could be added to that presentation, that would be awesome. For anybody who decides to go back and look at it at a different time, that would be awesome. And then I'm just glad to see that we're saving some money in case. I always like to see a little pad to our budget. So thank you, Mr. Moore, and thank you, Dr. Foley, for this presentation.
Any questions from the audience? I just want to thank Mr. Moore for definitely pointing out the ESA and the $7,000 per student that goes to be spent with none of the, what's the word, accountability and oversight that us as school districts must account for, and the lower amount that we receive. So thank you, Mr. Moore, for pointing that out. Go ahead, Mrs. Schultz.
I was just going to say, President Kaler, could you repeat what he said exactly in case anyone didn't hear? Just the 2/3, or do you want? Go ahead. Yeah, that we as a Higley get 2/3 the amount of that, the ESA vouchers of 7,000. Is that correct?
Correct. We get only 2/3 of what would be provided.
Okay, with that, I still hear the echo. Okay, we're going to move on. I move that we reconvene in open session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on. I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Questions, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Next up, Dr. Foley, our superintendent's report.
Woohoo! President Kaler, members of the board, it is back to school season, and we have been in the full throes of welcoming back new employees. Tomorrow morning, we have our rally. As you know, we are so excited to have our in-person rally. We have grown so large as our student populations have grown, so have our employees. And so we have 2 rallies tomorrow, one at 8:30 and one at 11. This is an opportunity for us to bring back, it's going to be a way for us to celebrate our Higley family, give them some efficient, quick updates, have a little bit of a pep rally and celebration with them, and send them off for a fabulous new year. We look forward to having you join us tomorrow, as you will be helping to lead part of the pep rally portion as we celebrate who's in the house. And so we are super excited for our welcome back rally for our administrators. We have been super busy doing orientations and getting ready, and we could not be more excited to start this school year, which begins for us on Monday, as we welcome back almost 14,000 students when we include also our pre-K and tuition-based programs. This is a wonderful thing. We obviously have some dates about Meet Your Teacher. As you know, we have just a few days until that first day of school, and we also have some upcoming board meetings as well, so that you know that we are super busy and back to school.
Thank you so much. Yes, we look forward to seeing, and I love that we can have all the employees from our schools present at the back to school rally, so that should be a fun day tomorrow. And I think it'll be the first time I set an alarm clock in a while, so we'll all be there. All right, any board comments?
President Kaler?
Yes, Mrs. Reese.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Darian Sanders. He plays Simba in The Lion King that's currently traveling, and that's here at Gamage. He visited Williamsfield High School today and met with their band in marching band. He was a band guy and used to do drum corps, and heard that they had band camp and said, "Can I come?" and he worked with the students and he talked with them, and it was really neat for him to just take that time out of his day to come and work with students. He used to be a teacher, so he missed it. So it was really exciting for someone to come and just be like, hey, can I just come? So I want to thank him for taking time out of his day, because they have performances like crazy. So
That is awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Mrs. Wilson.
I just want to thank all of our custodians and all of the staff who are getting our classrooms ready and clean and like up to tip-top shape. I know that they always don't get a thank you from us, so just thank you to them, because I know that our classrooms are going to smell really nice the first day of school. They might not last that long, but they always smell really nice the first day. So thank you, and thank you to all of the admin who did our admin retreat, and all the teachers who are coming back, and I'm just excited for the new year.
Anything else? All right. Thank you. We are going to move on. I move that we approve consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.18.
Second.
Questions, concerns, thoughts? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And Mrs. Reese, we did not have anybody to speak, correct? I kind of went over that, but we didn't have anybody to request to speak. So I kind of passed over that, just so you know. We didn't have anybody.
Just
Mrs.
briefly.
Martins has an
President-
announcement. Yes. you
President
do.
Kaler, members of the board, good evening. I'm excited to announce, with your acceptance of our consent agenda, that we now have a new Dean of Students at Sossaman Middle School, and that's Miss Angie Walker. So welcoming her.
Did you bring anybody special with you today, Mrs. Walker? Welcome into this position. I know that Sossaman is excited to have you, so thank you so much. And I did want to point out in our 7.17 that there were gifts given, United Healthcare for our wellness credit refund. That goes back to from our employees doing this wellness initiative from last year. And then the Chaparral PTO, they donated water fountain stations to Chaparral, which is always welcomed in, especially this time of year. So thank you for those gifts. We appreciate them. Okay, next up, this is just our 8.1. This is our Human Resources Quarterly ESI report. The board has had time to review it. Is there any questions or concerns for Mrs. Martins at this time? Okay, thank you very much for providing that information for us. And we do note that there was a little bit of increase, which was to be expected, and we knew that because we did keep our COVID relief monies going towards our staff when they were absent, and we had a lot during our winter time. So
Yes, President Kaler, members of the board, if you remember in December, January, February, we were struggling quite a bit with open vacancies because of the fact that we had a number of individuals that were out due to COVID. So that's where the increase came from. And we're knocking on wood that we don't have that similar experience this next year, but we'll see how that goes, as it seems like there's a lot more firsts that keep occurring this year. So thank you.
yes, it used to be the strep throat and the stomach flu, so we'll see. Okay, so thank you for that. Moving on, we have 8.2, and we are going to hear from Mrs. Morgan about our Healthy Higley Wellness Initiative.
We want to highlight Miss Morgan and all the work she's done since she's been here. She's worked really hard to unify her team, and I think you're going to learn some exciting things this evening from Miss Morgan. So
Thank you, Ms. Richards.
you're welcome.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. Well, good evening, President Kaler, members of the board. Thank you so much for this opportunity for me to speak to you tonight about the Healthy Higley Wellness Initiatives. I'm first of all excited to be back here in Higley, and of course, I'm happy to be the one that is going to be here tonight to share with you on this important topic. turn it on, don't you? Yay. Towards me. Okay, thank you. All right, so just some of the items that I'm going to be discussing tonight with you. I'm going to do an overview of the wellness initiatives. I'm going to provide a summary of the counselor additions. I'm going to provide just an overview of our vision of a K-12 comprehensive counseling program. I'm going to be touching on the Senate bills and Arizona state statutes, the revised statutes as it pertains to this topic, as well as suicide prevention and that mandatory training that we need to have for our district, and then potential resources that we are exploring. So I want to highlight one of the Higley Board initiatives to continue to ensure the safety of our students and employees as they return to school, with the focus on social and emotional well-being of students and employees. And last year, the ESSER 3 spending plan was presented, and these positions up here were approved. We had one district lead counselor to support K-12 counseling group, which is myself. We have added 3 counselors to service all 9 elementary schools, and I'm happy to say we have fully staffed our counseling department, so it's really exciting. We have Mr. Caleb Thrall, Miss Jennifer Fouts, Miss Lucretia Duncan. So they will be on board for us. So we're really excited to have them be a part of our team. And we also have additional support of a district behavior coach. We hired Deborah Welch. Her role is to assist teachers with dealing with challenging behaviors that are in the classroom. She's going to provide professional development for staff, whether that's classroom management skills or just anything that's site-based. So she'll be going around to all the schools in the district. So when I think of Higley Wellness Initiatives, these 3 words come to mind: committed, opportunities, and resources. So having been in Higley before, I know that we've always been committed to the health and wellness of our district community. And our counseling team is going to be committed to engaging our students, our employees, our families with opportunities to receive those resources. And that's going to be to address that personal, social, emotional well-being component. We're going to take a holistic approach, and what I mean by that is providing opportunities that are going to be personalized to each student and adult. So what we have here is a family employee community engagement depiction. So the plan is to develop a well-thought-out comprehensive program that's going to benefit all of our district community. And we're going to go over that program model in just the next slide, but I just wanted to highlight this diagram here. We have students at the focus, and we have our employees, families, and community that surround our students. So this program that we're implementing is student-focused. They will have adult advocates, so they're going to be able to partner with the adults, whether it's the community, employees, or their families. This is going to provide them with some more opportunities to grow and succeed. And academic performance behavior improves when there is adult presence in these students' lives. It's also a confidence builder for our students. So this is the Pre-K-12 Comprehensive Counseling Program model. This is established by the American School Counseling Association. And overall goal is student success for this comprehensive plan. And our approach to the program enhances the ability for all of our students to fully utilize the opportunities that are available to them. So there's an accountability piece, which is one of our Higley core values. This accountability piece drives this program. It's data-driven, so our counseling team will be looking at results based on attendance, discipline, and achievement gaps in order to see how successful this program is. So they'll make changes when necessary, or they'll keep the things the way they are, and they'll just kind of build on that. And this is delivered through direct and indirect services using those 3 domains: academic, personal, social, and career. There's themes around this program, and that's advocacy, leadership, collaboration, and systemic change. And the important piece I'd like to highlight is that leadership portion. So our counselors are leaders, and they're there to support students to prepare them for life after high school. So we're reminded of that portrait of a graduate, the innovative learner, or leader, excuse me. They demonstrate integrity, empathy through awareness and engagement, the socially responsible citizen that possesses knowledge and skills to be successful in life, and the college and career-ready scholar where they think critically, creatively, work collaboratively, and communicate effectively. And although students' best interest in mind is the focus of this program, as we saw in the last slide, we have other players. We have those adults that contribute to the benefits for the students at different times. So we're getting ready to launch this framework this fall, and this could take up to multiple years for us to develop these components. So just to the extent that we want it to. We want to be proactive, and we want to take things slowly and patiently. So we are dedicated to really building this from the ground up with that kind of quality and caliber that we've come to know here in Higley. And we want to be consistent with our curricular resources. So we're vetting all presentations, all curriculum, all instruction to ensure that it aligns to our district vision and mission before we roll this out to our students, educators, and families. So I've been assisting with the strategic plan for Anchor 1-2, which provides resources for support the social emotional growth of each student and the development of positive student behavior. So we are approaching this, like I said before, slowly with patience and proactively. We're going to start trainings with our staff, then our families, and then our students. We want our adults trained first so they know the facts, and then they're going to know exactly what we're going to be teaching our students. This is encouraging open dialogue also between the children around those themes and topics with their families. It's a healthy partnership between school and families when we have those teachings that are universal. So these are some of the examples of progress. I know Dr. Foley had already presented this at a previous board meeting, but we're developing the Healthy Higley Wellness Initiative. It involves those partnerships with those agencies and resources that we are exploring. And we've identified themes that we will include parent information sessions as well as teacher and student support around those themes, such as resiliency, suicide awareness, and drug prevention. And for this year, we're going to focus on resiliency, and this includes proactive and preventative ways to overcome obstacles in life and to develop those life skills. So these are the Arizona Senate bills and revised statutes that pertain to this topic. The first is the Mitch Warnock Act. This was established in fall of 2019. This is the mandatory suicide prevention for all 6th through 12th grade educators. And we know that training is critical to identifying students at risk for harming themselves and getting the help that they need. So as previously stated, we are vetting presentations and trainings to see what will be best for our district. And we'll talk more about that and what we're doing in our district in just a second. But with all things, we're going to go through the process to ensure not only we're in compliance with legislature, but also determining the best choice of training for our district community. The next one is Jake's Law. This was established in spring of 2020. This is saying that it improves access to mental health care. So insurance companies are going to requires insurance companies to cover mental health instruction and treatment costs like they would any annual physical. So our counselor and our partner agencies are going to be offering free tiered services for all of our students, our educators, and our families. And the last one is the mental health instruction that was established in fall of 2021. This is requiring health education instruction to include evidence-based social emotional learning instruction. And our counselors, again, are going to partner with agencies to provide that SEL instruction through various means. So this is our suicide prevention tiered approach. On the theme of resilience, we want to be vigilant in our efforts to provide the best training and education as possible. So like I said before, we're going to start with our staff. We're going to provide suicide prevention, intervention, postvention resources to help the school staff be prepared and recognize students that are at risk. This allows us to intervene effectively. It provides referrals to parents and guardians. We're better equipped to respond to any crisis that may happen in our district community. So we're currently reviewing different trainings that are practical for the school setting and that's best for our district. We're maximizing our efforts to train the appropriate individuals that can assist with crisis as well. So we're looking at training all our staff as soon as possible. We're looking at an all staff, some staff, and few staff tiered approach. So we've reviewed several programs that are safety starter programs for all of our staff. This is where they're learning, having awareness of suicide, being able to identify, acknowledging personal reality of suicide and learning those signs, identifying the students at risk and referring to them appropriate resources. So while legislation requires 6th through 12th grade educators to be trained, we're going to be training all of our staff. We think this makes a statement that our district is committed to devoting time and resources to suicide prevention. This is super important to us. And this is how we plan to differentiate for the needs of everyone. Some staff, we are looking at a program called Safe Talk. This is a safety connector program where staff will be engaged in recognizing and learning to understand the warning signs to ideation. We are going to be training our general administration team, which is comprised of all administrators across our district. We're also going to be using a program called More Than SAD. This is also a safety connector program, and we're going to be training our psychologists and our counselors in this program. What's special about this program is they have a train the trainer program. So our goal is that the psychologists and the counselors will be trained, and then they're going to be able to train the staff at the sites. So it would be more efficient to do that. So we'll get our psychologists and counselors trained on this, and then they're going to be able to roll out this program for all our staff this year. And to train few of our staff, we're also reviewing training programs that will best equip our crisis team. So right now, we've vetted a program called Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training, or ASSIST. This is going to be for our crisis team members. It's an intervention program, provider program. So they're going to be able to recognize when students are at risk. They're going to be working with the students to create a plan. They're going to support them for any immediate safety, or if they end up having to leave school for whatever reason to get some help, when they return to school, we're going to be able to support them also. So this training is going to be for few of our staff. So as you can see, we're taking a true comprehensive approach to this to be sure that we're providing for the unique needs of our district community. And lastly, here's some potential resources that we are reviewing. And one of the things since coming back to Higley, I've connected with additional resources, and we've been reviewing them to ensure they are connected with our strategic plan. And we've been deciding how to bring those community resources back to support the work that we already do every single day in our district. So these are just a few of the community partners that have been providing us resources and that we're vetting right now through our process to make sure it works well for us. So I've been working very closely with these agencies to help begin to broaden those resources that we have in our disposal here, and really to do the very best for our students and the community. And with that, does anybody have any questions?
Mrs. Wilson.
I heard you say about Jake's Law, and that allows more people access to mental health, and that requires the insurance companies to pay for it, correct?
Correct.
We heard in the fall or spring of last year how many parents came in and said that they could not get their kids into counseling. There was no way there wasn't enough counselors for their children. What is the legislators doing about that to get more counselors trained? Because I think that may be more of the problem than anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Foley. I think it might be a you question, but I don't know that I think it might be a legislator question more than anything.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, this has actually been one of the things. I have sat on several state committees, and while they were identifying additional ESSER funding, one of the challenges was all of us were looking for these kind of resources. Where the state and the system realizes the importance of creating quality resources and vetting them. One of the things that we found was also that overnight, all of these ABC, Come Learn With Me, social emotional learning, or resources were created that may or may not be at the level or caliber that we would want to utilize as a system. Obviously, the state is aware of this, and I think they're putting additional funding toward this. The ADE at the time was talking about actually creating a vetted list themselves, but they too are finding that there is a supply and demand. And so while the insurance will cover it, you may be looking for multiple wait time in order to get these resources. One of the things that Dina has done a really nice job on is networking with, she in her multiple roles, both when she was here before in Higley, when she left Higley and came back, has established partnerships and relationships with essential resources across the state, and her knowledge with those allows us to pick up where she's left off and make connections faster so that we can do a better job of helping provide to our families the vetted lists of the quality resources that exist out there rather than just anything that pops up. Now, granted, there may be wait times, but we have more resources at our disposal that are high quality with partnering with these partnerships and with having these people than ever before. I will tell you that I could not be more proud of the work. I mean, Dina started March 28th. Of this year. She came in and a lot of work was already happening with Mr. Walker, but having two people dedicated working toward it, a lot of momentum happened here. You've been reading about it, we've been providing you updates on it, but as you can see, we've exponentially we had some things. We are now far more prepared and better and more comprehensive than we had been before.
Thank you.
Mrs. Schultz?
I have a question about you. There's 3 counselors for the 9 schools. Can you just tell me how that's split up or how are they going to be at certain days or how that works as far as?
Yeah, President Kaler, Board Member Schultz, thank you for that question. So we have the 3 counselors that are going to split 3 schools each. And right now, I had the opportunity to meet with one of the counselors with the admin team of their schools, and we came up with different ideas of how to do it. So right now we're trying to see what would be best. I would like them, all 3 of the counselors, the month of August, to be able to spend as much time as possible at each of the schools and just get to know the kids and get to know the families, the educators. So we're in the process right now of kind of figuring out how that would work. I have done that in the past here in Higley, and it is difficult to balance more than one school. So having that experience, I can be able to talk with them and see what worked, what doesn't work, and how we can move forward with that.
President Kaler, Board Member Schultz, the other thing that we have is, yes, you have 3 who are dedicated, but you also now have a district person who can also assist, and you have a behavioral specialist who can also assist. So you can begin to triage. So you begin to learn your schools, and then you begin to utilize your internal resources to where you need them most. Sometimes you're, again, going back to that pyramid of intervention. Sometimes we're providing it, sometimes we're using our community partners, and sometimes we're escalating it up as we need to, but we now have an arsenal of resources and individuals to do that going into this year that we didn't have prior. So that is huge.
And to add to that, so I had told the administrators that I am also, like she said, available to do that. So each school knows that they have 2 counselors. So I'm going to be also going with them and assisting any kind of crisis or any issues that they have.
Awesome. I think this is great, and I love that we're training K through 6 as well. The training, how long do you anticipate it taking as far as, I know we're trainers are training others, but what does that look like?
Yes, President Kaler, Board Member Schultz. I know that Mr. Walker and I are working on that right now. We do have some dates set for the general administration team to be trained. I think it's the 23rd of August. And then that afternoon, our psychologists and counselors are going to be trained in that More Than SAD Train the Trainer program. So from there, we'll figure out with the Wednesday PD schedule of when we can get this training in for all of our staff.
Perfect. I'm guessing in status or something, there'll be updates as far as the training goes and everything. Good. Okay. And this is great. So thank you.
Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
Mrs. Schultz, will you shut? Thank you. Are we thinking about our preschool at all?
Thank you, President Kaler, Board Member Wilson. So we are looking at a program with Southwest Human Development that I have up there. There's a program that they have called Smart Support, where they have a consultant come in and meet with the educators. So right now, they're actually working with several of our elementary schools to bring in that resiliency that we had talked about. So yesterday, Gateway Point they had a presentation on self-care. I know that they're going to be working with HTA, Power, and Centennial as well in the upcoming months. But we do have a component where they can go into the preschools. So right now, Ms. Gleason is working with Southwest Human Development to get that type of smart support into the preschool. It's a different kind of consultation, but they are going to be working with that.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, it's important to remember that ESSER funding can only be used for those grade levels in which the state funds. And as you know, the state only funds a half day of kindergarten and not preschool. So the thing, we utilize the resources that we have to support those, and yet we can't utilize the state funding to fund positions for a grade level that the state does not fund.
Thank you.
I've worked a lot with Southwest Human Development in the past. Is that program, do they provide that free to, or is that a program that we'd have to pay for the preschool?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your
The
question.
program that you're talking about partnering with Southwest Human Development, then is that something they provide for free? I can't remember. I've worked with them in the past, but it's been a couple of years.
You said
Preschool, I'm sorry. Do they provide that?
They do have a component of preschool. It's just not the same smart support that we are using right now with our elementary schools.
Right, and is it, they provide it to, they would provide it to us free, or is that something we have?
Correct, it's
Okay,
free.
okay, perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
President Kaler,
Go ahead.
Mrs. Schultz, our preschools are also part of a Quality First program, and smart support comes with Quality First. But Ms. Morgan, I learned of a new program just today that Southwest Human Development is doing, and it's called U3. And it is very interesting for the preschool piece because they work with the teachers on how to deal with trauma impacted children. So I'll keep you updated on that.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Reese. I'm definitely interested in learning more about that.
It is a brand new program through Southwest Human Development. I was the first one to meet with them this morning, so I'll keep you updated on it, but it sounds very interesting. And again, that's another program that comes through Quality First, so.
President Kaler, when I visited preschool today, Ms. Gleason let us know she's working with ADE with that pyramid program. So you might elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk with her about that, but she did let me know that when we were at the admin retreat, that she had something lined up. So I'm excited to talk with her about that.
So she's going to be working with them on Friday, and that is free through the Arizona Department of Education. So it's exciting because we are getting more support than we've had in the past, and that smart support really supports the educators, which is what we heard last year, specifically from the preschools that they wanted. So
Smart support is really amazing to work with the teachers because they'll come in and they'll observe the class, and then they will help guide the teacher on different things on how to approach different issues and things. So
President Kaler, members of the board, I would be happy to invite you guys to the next time that her name is Anna Marie is at one of the schools, and you can see the work that she does. Because I was there yesterday at Gateway Point. It was amazing. It was really a great program that she does, and it was on self-care, like I said, for the educators, and it was really good.
I can't applaud this enough. Being an educator, there's so much feeling of helplessness in the classroom whenever you have students in front of you that either very vocally or very expressively show that they're hurting or they're not. And you just don't know what to do, and it's just been send them to the counselor, send them to the nurse, and you're just left feeling like you haven't done what you needed. So I'm very excited for this, and I applaud you for getting this going, and I look forward, and I understand you said, if I heard this correctly, that the status updates will have the training, or will we get anything beyond that, just as far as how the program is working as well? Will that be in status, or will that be another update?
President Kaler, Board Member Anderson, it'll probably be both, because as you know, this is directly connected to our strategic plan. It is one of our focus areas for this year. So I can assure you, you will be getting summaries and additional updates as we progress throughout the year and roll out the plans that we have implemented, as this is one of those things that we've identified goals and indicators that we're working toward, and we'll be providing updates all year long.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, wait, I'm not done. Sorry. She was like, oh, I'm done.
What'd
No.
you say?
I said, you're not done yet.
I'm not done yet? Okay. Go ahead.
She's all shucks. No, I too appreciate that we are training all of our students, all of our staff, and including that K. I did have an attempt come to me just a couple weeks ago, and she was only 11 years old. And so that just, every attempt breaks my heart, but that young. So we definitely need that training for all of our teachers, and I so appreciate that. This has been a long time coming for our district. I think Christine and I kind of started years ago, kind of knocking on the door and just knocking on the door. And thank you to Dr. Foley coming in and making this amazing team under her that is actually paying attention to all the things that I think some of us up here have been wanting. Our crisis team, I know you will put that together in an amazing way. I think sometimes when we think of crisis, we just kind of rush and send people over, and it's not quite the right fit for the situation. And the kids don't want to talk to that person because it's this total stranger. But I know with your expertise, putting that team together will be awesome. The other thing I heard was just this re-entry plan is so crucial for these kids. They leave for maybe weeks at a time, maybe months at a time, and then they want to come back to some sort of place that they can still feel safe, and that is so crucial. So all these things that you've mentioned, I have goosebumps right now because I just know this is something that I personally have wanted more for our district, and it's finally coming to fruition. So thank you, thank you, thank you. From the
Thank
bottom
you,
of my
guys. I
heart.
appreciate it.
All right, now you can go. She's like, I'm out of here. No, you're done. Thank you. Oh, I snorted. All right, here we go. You have to have fun sometimes too. Next up, we have Mr. Lotzenheiser is going to introduce our next presentation on the Higley Virtual Academy update.
Ready? Yeah. President Kaler, members of the board, very excited to come to you tonight with an update on our Higley Virtual Academy. This has been quite a process over the last year and a half as we've grown this program. And so tonight what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we did build the school. We're going to talk about and remind you about the elementary and secondary models that we're currently using. We'll talk to you a little bit about where enrollments are currently as well as where they were in the past. Mr. Dolan's going to explain some of the successes and some of the challenge it is to starting a virtual school from the ground up. And then we'll talk about next steps and different things that we're adding for next year. So if you remember, there was a big need a couple of years ago, 2020, for us to have our own online alternative program for as opposed to in-person learning. What we were finding is that we were having students within our district that were leaving our district because we did not provide an online academy like some of our surrounding districts did. And there was a presentation given to the governing board 2 years ago that talked about how many students were leaving to gain credits and different ideas in these districts. And so the goal was to let's bring this back and have something for Higley so we can provide that opportunity for our families. Got very much accelerated because of the pandemic and because of needs from our families. But we had already started that process. It's called an accredited online institution. So if you hear the words AOI, that's what it means. Everybody forgets, but that's what it is. Through the Arizona Department of Education. And so we need to give a shout out to our Student Information System Department and our Research and Assessment, particularly Lori Collins and Brian Campbell, as they helped combine, they gave us the data and helped build this AOI application so that we got approved to start this. Once again, we came to the governing board and said we need a curriculum for an online, so we looked at the Florida virtual curriculum as it was implemented. During that process, we were able to hire a planning principal, and the starter of that, Mr. Dolan, is here today as the principal of the program. And then we had physical space at Power Ranch, because while everything can be virtually, we still need teachers to have the materials that they need and have a central location, as well as this important factor that we do within our high schools, have proctored final exams. And so we had to have a location where kids came in so they can take their finals in person. So we planned all of that, we jumped in, and we opened last year. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dolan. He's going to go through the models with you, the enrollment successes and challenges, and help explain basically what's happened within the last year and how we've gotten to where we are with Higley Virtual Academy.
President Kaler, board members, thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you. Just a kudos to you. I know Mr. Lotson was talking about this idea of coming out with online programs. I know it takes a lot for you guys to even say, hey, we're going to do it.
It's not giving a lot off the speakers, but we're still recording.
I know that it takes a lot to get it done, and I appreciate you guys' willingness to try. And I think that you'll see some successes, and again, like I said, some challenges, but we'll go through that with you. So our elementary, the way our elementary is set up is it's synchronous learning. So they meet with their teachers on a daily basis. Each one of my teachers, we have set up where they have what they call a morning meeting. Every teacher teaches more than one grade. So all of their kids will meet them in the morning from about 8 o'clock till about 8:15. Then they start to break down curriculum. And the way my teachers set it up is they supplement the Florida virtual curriculum. So if my kindergarten teacher is meeting with kindergarten at 8:30, her first and second grade kids are now working on Florida virtual. So when they come back, she can give them stuff that's either going to reteach or pre-teach some of the materials. They give them work on math, science, English, and social studies. The way math and English work is daily, every single day. English and social studies, they kind of break into units. So depending on the teacher, sometimes it is a unit or a week of social studies, and then a unit or a week of science. But they try to, again, blend it back into, when it comes to our writing, et cetera, back into our English curriculums. They are full-time salaried teachers. And besides core instruction, what all of my teachers have done too is they've added some clubs. So my third, fourth grade teacher, she had some kids who said, hey, I want to have a Spanish club. So they had a Spanish club. We had a gaming club. My K through, I guess, 2, they did some games online, simple, where through some platforms they had. And then my 5th and 6th grade teacher, she opened up to, I don't know how would sports, games and stuff like that. So all of my K-6 teachers tried to, even though kids weren't necessarily in front of them, tried to engage them outside of the classroom. Secondary model. The secondary model is asynchronous learning. So there are no live lessons. It provides some flexibility, but also provides some challenges for some kids. So when you look back to, hey, we are reacting to, say, COVID or opportunities like that, for some kids who went online, this model definitely was a struggle for them. But the kids that choose to do it for the right reasons, it works for them. They're independent learners. They enjoy the flexibility. We certainly have on the 7th through 12 level, we have kids that are concurrent, so they go to school and they come to us. But also there are kids that are full-time online. The flexibility piece, I think, is great, especially for our 9 through 12. You get that kid who works and would love to get out at 10 o'clock. They now can get out at 10 o'clock, go to work, and still get their work done. Our 7th and 8th grade is not. They are full-time. They don't have the opportunities to kind of go back and forth. And I know part of that, being a middle school principal, is the ability to set that up would be very, very difficult. And also it's travel, for kids. My teachers, they get paid, they are teachers from campuses. So I have a math teacher, say, from Williamsfield. She will teach Algebra 1 in person, and her responsibilities are office hours with kids twice a week. And then just like any other teacher that's in person, she will respond to emails between 24 and 36 hours. What my teachers found out, I had asked them to create office hours. And they told me, well, John, I sit in an office for 30 minutes and no kids show up. What works better for them is the kid who sends the email and says, I'm struggling. And they say, can you meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock? So timing-wise, it would be difficult to say, whether they meet an hour with kids per week, 2 hours. It really depends on the class. But they found that that's worked better for them, and I'm completely okay with that. I think that's it from there. Okay, elementary enrollment. So we began in the fall of 2021 at 70 students. In the spring, we had numerous kids go back. Some parents felt they were a little bit more comfortable with their kids going back. And currently, if you look, we're at 25. Now, when I gave this presentation we were at 23. So we've gone up 2 in the last 2 days. We will continue to go up. To be honest, I don't think it'll go up to that level, but it will go up more on the elementary level. You'll see the numbers on the secondary. And the numbers since the last time I did this, which is 3 or 4 days ago, they're going up significantly. Secondary enrollment. So we started, and I have some full numbers here, but in the fall of 2021, 2 weeks in, we were a little over 200 kids. In spring, that increased to probably an additional 50 or 60 kids. And right now we are almost the exact number where we were 2 weeks in. So with 3 weeks to go, number-wise, we're pretty much even to where we were to begin the program last year. Now, for us, today, tomorrow, the rest of this week, it's going to be extremely busy because that's when we're starting to get a lot more. And then next week. So what we've done is I asked Mr. Lotzenheiser, and he graciously agreed. Our kids don't start their classes till the second week. That affords us the opportunity to allow them to come in, but also we have modules they have to go through before they can get into class. How do you take your attendance? How to go through Canvas? And then they have to have a meeting with me. So it just kind of gives me time, but it also allows them the ability to navigate everything they have to do and not fall behind. You get that kid who goes to school for a day or two and then says, Mom, I don't want to be here. Can we make some adjustments? It gives them that chance to not fall behind and do that. And so that's our true goal. We don't want kids to, hey, here's your week's worth of work. It's the third week. You now have to do 3 weeks of work in 1 week. So if we push it back a week, by then, yes, some kids will trickle, but by then we've kind of captured what we're going to capture. Okay, so our successes and challenges on the elementary. You come in here, and even myself, I would say I understand technology, but I don't think I understand technology that I had to understand. I had all new teachers to the district except for one. She was in our district, and their knowledge base was excellent, but then it's trying to understand, well, how do I incorporate what I used to do in person with kids now online? How do I make sure the kid turns his camera on? Because that's frustrating to me. So the discipline challenges for them way different. And also, how do I engage these kids? And how do I set it up so that it stays engaging? So some of the challenge was, well, how long do I stay on at a time? Do I make it an hour? Do I do 20 minutes? Kind of like, when we were probably growing up with the commercials in between. How do I set that up? And so they've really kind of come to that. If they do brief, anywhere from 15 to 20-minute lessons, mini lessons that support, they've found that works much better than if they continue for a longer period of time to capture the kids' attention on the screen. That's led them to start to realize, well, if I do that, it affords them more opportunity and time. So what a lot of these kids get is a lot of one-on-one time. Because if I meet with both grades and I'm done by 11 o'clock, I still have the afternoon. So I can now say, okay, when I look at it from a tier 2 intervention, I need to see these 3 kids because they didn't understand this, so we're going to meet at 11:35. And then I'm going to have group work for this. So the success is what we've seen is more touches. My teachers they feel they get the opportunity to touch more kids in a given day because of the fact that they can now say, okay, I only need to see you 2, 3 now, or I can put you guys in a breakout room to do this, and I can work on this. So that's been definitely a success for them. I also think that because of the way the model is, parents have to be involved. So I think, and I meet with my teachers, they know these parents very, very well. And I have one teacher who said to me the other day, oh, well, Dina, da-da-da. I'm like, who's Dina? Oh, Mrs. So-and-so. I'm like, oh. And how she now knows her and the things because of the interaction she's had about their kids. Some of the major challenges I kind of mentioned about the accountability is kids sometimes not coming to a meeting. In a classroom, I can walk over and tap a kid and say, hey, but you can't tap the screen, so sometimes it's the call to the parent, hey guys, hang on, and calling a parent while the kids are there and trying to put it on mute. So, hey, can you get Billy in front of the screen because we're trying to do this. That was a challenge. And I think just the learning curve for them when it comes to technology, what they're going to implement, understanding how it is, and then making sure it's going to be successful for them to implement for those kids too. The biggest thing our biggest challenge was online assessments. The kids need to come in person to take Acadians. They need to come in person for the CBAS stuff. And we struggled with that. And part of it was definitely some kids went online because of COVID. But as the year progressed, we got them to realize that we need them to be here. Part of it is that, but also the socialization aspect that we're trying to add. So as we came into this upcoming year, that's one of the changes that we have is when it comes to testing and kids coming in. Secondary successes and challenges. So some of the successes, we offered over 50 classes. At first, I wrote this thing out to teachers, and I was trying to, be a salesman and say, let me kind of explain to you, you're going to get, an allotment per kid. And if you break it down as if you were a coach, you're going to get paid like $15 an hour. And I kind of try to pull the coach card of, hey, look, you're not out in the sun, you're not doing these kind of things. And I'm just crossing my fingers that I knew enough people that would say yes. And I did, and at this time last year or a week before, I have a person who's got 3 kids in their class. I'm like, oh man, this is not going to be good. But as time went on, I think we saw that for many people, it was something they wanted to at least try, or they thought it was going to be a good opportunity for their kids. We created some consistent procedures, or I did, so that it made sure that every kid, when they go on to their Canvas page, it looks the same whether they're going to go into their math class, their English teacher. It doesn't matter whether the teacher's at Sussman, whether the teacher's from Williamsfield, whoever they have, everything is the same. I wanted to get rid of my teacher does it this way, and so on. So no, everything is the same. And now the problem is the learning. Like, how can we help you with the learning as opposed to you don't understand the setup of our system. So trying to set that up and then buying into that was very, very helpful. And I think, just the idea of innovation, a success is we're trying to support our district's mission about that. Our teacher retention rate is 87%. It would be higher. I have one teacher who moved out, and then the other 3, it was a good split. For them, it wasn't working, and for me, what they were doing wasn't working either. I wanted to do something better for our kids. Some of the challenges is just learning the curriculum. It's easy to sit there and say, okay, well, here's your American history curriculum. But then as the teacher, to go through it to make sure that, hey, do all the links work, technology-wise, but then also, do you understand it? So when you're going to go grade something, you're understanding the rubric and being able to kind of support those kids when they ask you questions, et cetera. It's the same thing for me because I try to make myself available for any kid. So if I got a call, sometimes it was like, give me a minute. And having to go through, look at it. Do I understand it? Do I have to call you back? And trying to kind of be a tutor for those kids as well. Staffing, I kind of mentioned that before, but I was blessed. Our science coach gave me a person to teach science. So probably one of the only classes that there's someone who's teaching more than one class. is a science teacher. She is not a science teacher on our campus, but she teaches 2 or 3 of the high school classes. So blessed to at least fill that role, and now she's really blossomed. She helped us out in the summer too. So staffing now isn't a problem. I actually had to interview people for some jobs, which kind of makes me feel good. And then the accountability for student learning. You have some kids who think it's online, this is going to be easy. And they don't take the approach of, hey, I got to set up my structure. I have to be able to look at my time and kind of map it out, because if I don't, it's going to continue to pile up, and then I'm going to just not do it. So I think those were some major challenges we faced. And so what we did in the first 9 weeks is, over the break, we extended for kids to, hey, you can make up some work. But then explaining to parents, this isn't going to happen again. We understand that this is new to you. It's new to us too. So we're going to, give you an opportunity. It's late, but we'll give you that opportunity. But once that's done, we're closing and we have to move forward. So those were, I feel, some challenges that we faced. Summer school. So we then said, well, we're losing some kids to other districts. What can we do? So we did some credit acceleration, not remediation. So for credit acceleration, we offered American history, we offered government and economics, and we offered a science class. And we had about 65 or 70 kids take that opportunity. Every single kid there was 3 kids who didn't finish, but of the 70 kids, 67 kids got credit this summer for the work they did. And it's kind of neat, too, to see some kids where the way the summer school is set up compared to the in-person during the year, summer school, it's open. You have 13 days to complete all the work. And you have some kids who, like day 2, I'm like, oh my God, look how much work this kid's done. And it's day 7, I have some kids who've done nothing. And so myself and Mrs. Markling made a lot of phone calls after week 2 to say, hey, your kid's got 6 days left, hasn't done any work. And yes, they finished it all because you have to in order to take the final exam. But it's just neat to see how kids' styles work when it comes to things like that. Elementary changes for the 22-23 school year. So we really wanted to bring kids in, and we wanted to have them have the opportunity to socialize. So we create once a month, we're going to have Fun Fridays. Now, in Fridays, our Fridays is most teachers' Wednesdays. So instead of having our half-day Wednesdays to do PDs, et cetera, we moved it to Fridays for this purpose, for our social, emotional stuff, and et cetera, because last year we did it on Wednesdays. So when the kids come in, I have a certified PE teacher who's going to teach PE about 30 minutes. Then they're going to go into their classrooms and they're going to do their 4th lesson of the month on the character. We use a program called Character Counts. And I like Character Counts because, and I was telling everybody why we chose it. I chose it, first reason is I drive my daughter to school every day. And I drive by Ryan Elementary School and it says character trait for the month. And so I wanted to look into it and see what it was about. And I really liked it because not only were there lessons, but I thought it was something the kids could understand. If we're going to talk about integrity, I think they could relate to that and kind of talk about that. So on those Fridays, it now becomes a live lesson with their teacher. After that, then the fun part comes, where each month there's going to be a different activity. There'll be games. We talked about reading. We talked about movies. So we haven't mapped that full thing out yet, but we're trying to make it something where we want these kids to come in to have the opportunity to socialize, because they're at home all by themselves. That doesn't mean I know that weekends and other stuff they're not doing stuff, but now it gives them an opportunity to kind of do that. Now, what we did and also is on that, not every kid's going to come in. So we want to make sure they get something. So each teacher has a lesson that they have to provide. So either, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow, either I'm in charge of the 4th lesson, which would be on those Fridays, and then I go online with those kids who aren't, or we rotate, and each teacher then would kind of provide that same lesson to those kids that are staying at home. We haven't figured that out yet. We'll kind of talk about that tomorrow. And then secondary changes. So we're offering dual enrollment classes through CGCC. We had 5 teachers this summer go through the training, and whether it be American history, English 101, government, pre-calculus. I know there's another one, I'm sorry, I can't remember. Those 4 definitely, and I know those teachers went through it. Those will be offered. Now, if we can't get enough kids, obviously we won't have it, but it's kind of cool to say that we're going to be able to offer that to kids, and these teachers have the training. And in meeting with CGCC, what we have to add is more of the collaboration piece that they don't get online because of the requirements for the college. We have 2 years of sign language. Teacher is phenomenal, love her. And I think the interest, of the kids that she had in the first year, only 2 kids are not coming back and they moved to North Carolina. So every kid that was a lower, under senior is coming back to take her second year of it, which I think is great. Kudos to her. I felt that math, kids struggle. You're going to take math by yourself. So kind of was reaching out to different people, and I found a program called Sophia. And Sophia is, if you know what Alex is like, the program we use, it's similar in the sense that Sophia, we will embed it into Canvas for these kids in math. And you can take the problem that you don't understand and you can put it into Sophia. But Sophia doesn't give you the answer. What it does is you have 2 choices. You can either ask for a hint, which means it'll give you the next step, or you can say, I really don't understand, and they'll take different numbers and they'll put the different numbers in there and solve it for you. So it becomes kind of like an additional tutor for kids, but it doesn't solve it for them, because if it does, then the next 3 problems that are the same, they're never going to get the answer. So again, this isn't a solution, but it's definitely a step in the right direction to help some kids who choose to do math online that may struggle. Obviously, they can reach out to their teacher, they can reach out to myself, but this is something we're going to try, and we think it's going to be very, very helpful for them. We also added a class called College and Career Readiness. Now that, if we look at our, portrait of a graduate, it's something certain that those kids that do it, there's a component where they have to meet with the teacher that I think is going to be really, really helpful. I did something similar to it last year that I just kind of created material for it. This is going to be similar, but using Florida Virtual, I think it's going to probably be better than what I did, because I actually have a teacher who's going to do it as well. We also noticed that when kids came in and took their final exams, there was no review guides, there was nothing. So this summer I asked some teachers and they created some review guides for kids. So now, talking about accountability, we can say to kids, hey, you studied the review guide, you can bring that review guide in, but that's it. You can't bring your notes, you can't look at anything else, and now you can really see if you do what you're supposed to do. The way the program is set up, if you do not pass the final exam, you do not get credit. Hence, it affords you the opportunity to take the final exam a second time. So you take it, you don't do well, you take it the second time. The hope is that therefore you're going to pass the second time. But the review guide, after this summer, what I heard from many kids, not going to say all, they said that it was really, really helpful. What made me laugh is when some kids said to me, well, it was good, but all the answers aren't on here. Yeah. And then, we're now going to be kind of under the umbrella of our alternative programs that involve all of our high school students. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
I have a few, I'm sorry. Standardized testing, do we separate these kids out when we do our standardized testing? Or are these kids put into their other school? Sorry, I don't think I'm explaining myself well.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, one of the things that is not negotiable is we are required, when we do standardized testing, it has to be in person. And one of the things that John has worked very hard with is how to work with these families to provide alternate opportunities and schedules and spaces and places to help them feel comfortable and confident about bringing their child in. You also, one of the things he talked about is the importance of parents understanding in the elementary that you cannot be in the elementary model if you are not willing to bring your child to testing, because from state testing requires us to have a certain percentage for tested. And if you only have a few kids in a grade level and one doesn't show up, you could drop below that. You would already drop below that. So that's a huge component.
And just to add, so this summer we're stationed in a classroom at Power Ranch, large classroom, but a classroom. So went and got some furniture to make it look more like an office. And part of it is sectioned off. There's 6 computers in it. Plus we have a computer lab. So when parents come in, if they say, look, I'm uncomfortable with my kids testing with everybody else, no problem, you can test in my office. So we have alternatives to kind of make that work. And also, as Dr. Foley had shared, it's a non-negotiable. And I, nicely explained to parents that if your kid does not come in, we'll give them another opportunity, but if not, I have to send you back to in-person learning, because that's part of the, you're buying into this, you're signing this, this is what has to happen.
Dr. Foley, when we get our standardized testing scores, is Higley Virtual going to be set? Okay, perfect. That was more my question than anything, because I knew we had called them in, but I was like, is that going to be a separate line item, Higley Virtual?
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, yes. Now this is its own school, and and its accountability and its accreditation and all the things that we have to do to maintain its status. It's its own school, and all of the rules apply. So we do have its data separated.
Fantastic. What about graduation for these kiddos? I know we have 50-something seniors.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, so this will be the first year we'll have graduates. We have currently 21 full-time students. The way we've broken it out is if a student is concurrent, whether it's 2 classes with me or 4 classes with me, whatever your numbers are, you have a homeschool. The only students that would graduate from the Higley Virtual Academy would be full-time students.
And there's 21 of those.
There's 21 of them right now, yes.
Okay, great. Do you still meet with each parent? I know last year you met with each family just to give them the expectations of what online school isn't and what it is. Do you still do that this year? Are you still working on that?
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, yes. So the way that works now is similar to last year. Sometimes it's literally myself, the parents, and the student 15, 20 minutes. Other times it's they've called and I say, is your daughter or your son there? Yes, can you put him on the phone? And we do it right there. Only because it saves me time, but also you've called, I have a captive audience. Let's kind of get to the business of what you want.
And my last question is, how do we advertise Higley Virtual?
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, as you know, that one of our focuses on our strategic plan is our marketing process. And we have been marketing, we've been advertising, we've been putting things in various modalities that we are advertising in, but this is one of the things that we're going to continue to focus on and prioritize and bring more information to you about what that will look like and how we are doing that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dolan. I really appreciate it, and thank you for answering all my weird off questions.
Anybody else? Mrs. Reese?
President Kaler, thank you. Mr. Dolan and Mr. Latzenheiser, so our high school kiddos have gotten their schedules, and we know their counselors are inundated with changes, and we start school on Monday. Excuse me. How are we giving some time frame within the high schools for a student to be like, you know what, this is not working for me, being at school, whatever reason, are we giving some time? Because I know we have some pretty firm change and drop time frames, but now that we have this available, that our counselors are inundated right now, and if they 2 to 3 weeks into school have the opportunity to talk with a student and be like, you know what, maybe this class might be better for you at our online school. Are we allowing some of that flexibility? Because I can tell you, and I'm so glad we have this, and it was even pre-COVID, because I know a lot of our high school students were put in a position of either you have to give something up you really love and enjoy, or you find another way to take a class. And, I've said it before, for mine, color guard and marching band was way more important. And that seems weird to say, but that was her passion and her love and her desire. But the other classes that we offered at school, they were only offered, there was a lot of one-offs.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this class that you need is only offered this period, but this class you need is also only offered this period. So you have to give this up. And so we were one, obviously didn't leave the district, but we looked for a class elsewhere because this is not something that we offered. So I'm excited to have it because it's a great opportunity for those kids that if they have a 0 hour for something, but it's only certain things offered. So I hope we're allowing a little extra flexibility on some of those drop and change dates.
So President Kaler, Board Member Reese, that's a great question. So what we've done is we follow the guidelines of 10 days. But remember, we have 1 week that we're not there. So that's 15 days. And we've actually extended it. So we're 4 weeks. So by 4 weeks, you should know where you're at. And also by that point in time, to be honest, for a kid to move, it's different curriculum. So you'd have to start all over. So it becomes difficult. So yeah, we have basically a 4-week window. And I work with a counselor at Williamsfield and at Higley specifically. And so for them, in this first week when they're making schedule changes, it's not a problem for me because we don't have classes. And also for them too, right? You get the kid who may not want this class. And as you said, hey, I really want to take this, but AP Physics is off for third and same as this. What other options do I have? Well, you could take government econ online. I can move this around here. And so I think that's probably the best part about it is the flexibility with our counselors too to help those kids get everything that they want. So yes, we do have flexibility.
Thank
President
you.
Kaler.
And I was going to say to Mrs. Wilson too, from an advertising standpoint, yes, we're getting this out there, but a lot of this started during COVID. So some families may not realize no, this is here to stay, that we have a virtual academy and online classes for our kids. So it may be that counselor having that conversation with that student, trying to figure out classes and be like, hey, let's look at this. So
It may even be like a scan code outside the counselor's office, like, hey, if your class isn't offered, scan here and see if it's offered online.
So President Kaler, board members, the courses, so what I did last year and I will do it again this year is right before registration, I went to both schools and both video production guys were kind enough to videotape me. And it was like a question and answer. And it was, hey, what do you offer? Why should a kid do this? That kind of stuff. So I want to do that again because I think now this year I feel we'll either have more stuff or I'll probably be able to say it better to put that out there. And also when kids come online, I think now I don't want them to get this feeling of, hey, I get a week off because they don't. In that first week, they have to go through a module that I created and it's called HVA Happenings. I think I said that before. And if they don't go through it, they don't get to get in class because they have to send to me a form signed by them and their mom and dad say, we understand the expectations, et cetera. And it's a challenge for me to make sure it happens, but I'm sorry, I will not open your class until you do this. And those who finish, I can open their class. So if you finish on Wednesday and you want to start on Thursday to get ahead, no problem. So as soon as kids get in, and those kids that have already done this, their classes will be open probably by next Thursday, so they have 3 or 4 extra days to get the first week's worth done.
We all have a look from Mr. Curtis to make sure we're talking directly into our microphones. So I'm just going to remind everybody up here that we need to talk into them so we are heard on everything. Any other questions or concerns? Oh, go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. One question, simple question is that Sophia sounds really interesting. Can you apply that to your chemistry classes as well, since there's a lot of math involved? Will it work there as well?
Board members and President Keller, yes, absolutely. So I'm piloting it right now.
Okay.
I just got off the phone with a guy today, and he basically said to me, John, you said to me, these two math teachers, I'm going to leave it open for anybody else who wants it.
Very cool.
So my chemistry teacher, she's teaching chemistry. She's also teaching anatomy. But since she's not in person, she comes in. So I'm going to be able to sit with her, and I can say to her, hey, Wendy, what do you think? Do you want me to add this to you, for kids for that? And it wouldn't be a problem at all to add it, because all it is from the Canvas aspect is reaching out to Lori Collins. She puts it, embeds into the class, and the kids have the opportunity to use it.
That's great, yeah. But chemistry online is pretty tough with the math. My second question is, and I wish Ms. Morgan were still here, I assume that these teachers also go through the health and wellness, or the wellness initiative, like all the other staffing, correct?
President Keller, Board Member Anderson, yes, they do.
Okay.
And so what we try to do for the kids online, my K-6 teachers deal with some of the SEL stuff for them, and then I deal with the 7 through 12.
Oh, okay.
So what I try to do for the 7 through 12, and it's going to be better this year, so this page that I've created that they have to go to do the first module, now all information will kind of be disseminated through that, and parents will get it as well. What I did is I used to call it What Up Wednesdays. And so we would have a topic, and I would send it out 2 or 3 questions, and that would kind of lead the discussion. And then we would kind of let it go from there. But most of it was about how are you doing, how are you feeling. Sometimes it was about classes, but I wanted the kids to get an opportunity to just have conversations with each other. And I didn't want to lead it. So sometimes there's 15 kids in this group. Sometimes there's 2. My goal this time is it's going to be a lot more, and I might have to break it up to say, okay, hey, guys, we're going to do 7th and 8th graders, then we're going to do 9, 10, 11. I think most of the upper grades, since they're concurrent, I don't see them very often, but the 7th and 8th graders are the majority of the kids that I would see when it comes to the What Up Wednesdays.
And are any of the counselors, are they going to the schools, like they were divided? Is this one of the schools that they're also kind of checking in on or being available for, or part of the plan, or is it you alone? You alone and the staff?
President Keller, Board Member Anderson, so with this, with my SEL, et cetera, I'm going to work directly with Ms. Morgan. And so if I need support from a counselor, I'm sure she's going to kind of hook me up with that. But right now, the nice piece that I have too is when I do get calls from parents, whatever, my kid's struggling with X, Y, and Z, now I know I can easily go to Dina to get some supports.
President Kaler, board members of the board, one of the things you've heard here is that John has multiple roles. One of the things that he has in being, he has multiple roles, and he has assumed multiple roles. And I'd like to have Mr. Latzenhauser for just a second talk about some of the additional things that we have utilized John and his skill sets for as he facilitates multiple capacities in our online program, as well as kind of the other continuum of services that we have for alternative ways for students to receive credit.
So President Kaler, members of the board, so we do have alternative ways for kids to, especially at the high school level, to earn credit. HVA is a part of that, an alternative to in-person. We also have what's called our RISE Labs, which is a program using APEX curriculum that we do during the day, as well as our HLC program to help those kids who truly are behind, that we're going to get them to cut up. Mr. Dolan, with his experience being at the high school and going through that, has been an ideal fit to lead all of those programs together. So when we take a look at the alternatives we have to help kids get caught up, HVA can be part of this aspect, but HLC now now. John is, Tommy's the direct leader of that. Tommy Bird is on campus, but she's reporting to John, and John is helping lead that, as well as providing consistency within our RISE labs as well. And so the scope, as we've learned of John leaving the campus and coming to the district and leading the online school, has continued to grow as we'll find different more roles to his expertise, and we just want to keep him as busy as possible. But this really has helped, because now he has an overarching view of different pathways to help kids who need to find ways to find credits. And so those are additional responsibilities that John has picked up.
The advantage of this is that we're more comprehensive, we're utilizing our resources consistently, and we have options for families. And that's one of the things that when you look at how we've evolved this over, necessity was the mother of invention, but this was a sorely needed component for Higley. And we have come a long way again in a very short time, in a very unique time. So congratulations to John and the work that he and his team have done this year. It was quite a lot of moving parts and pieces that have been successfully combined.
Go ahead, Mrs. Schultz.
I have one thing. It's great how this is intimate, and it seems very intimate as far as the kids have somewhere to go, even though they're online and you're always accessible and everything, which is great. But I have a question in regards to the K through 6, and the numbers, they're low as far as it goes. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. There was a question about that in our notes, sorry. Is there a point where we look at it, the numbers, and it doesn't make sense anymore for us to offer it to kids? I mean, for COVID, I think the little kids, but what does that look like?
So, President Kaler, Board Member Schultz, yes. So one of the things is that you have families who are continuing to opt to make this as their way. You notice that we are staffing this appropriately. You have multi-age, you have multi-level preps. This would be one of those things that when we have people register back in January, when we say, are you coming back or not? At some point, we will have to make the determination whether or not we would continue to do that. I will tell you that at this moment, though, with the fact that there are a lot of families who are still on the fence about whether they want to return to school in person next week, I think our elementary numbers may still continue to rise. These are still unique times. Some of these families continued with us, and they want to continue with us, and so we're going to have to make that decision every year. At this point, the commitment was made to continue the momentum there and just staff it appropriately, realizing that we're making accommodation. But the reality is that we have accommodated about as far as we can go to make it make sense. And yet, and you've heard, there is continuity, consistency, quality in how they are doing that. There comes a point, though, that any multiple preps beyond that is not realistic. And so decisions may need to be made. Our hope is that we are able to continue to provide that elementary. Most of our districts around us do, but it does mean you staff it differently. But in the event that we are ever in a position where we look at the staffing and say this doesn't make sense to continue, our goal would be to make sure families are informed as far in advance as possible so that they can make decisions. I mean, we know that losing them is not our hope or goal. But again, the sooner we know, the better we're able to accommodate.
Does this program, it makes sense for people who, I know there's several people in the district who left to travel the country for the year. Does this program make sense for them even though they have to come in for the testing or things like that?
President Kaler, Board Member Schultz, I think every family makes the decisions on what works for them in their schedule. The hard part is the requirement of the testing is beyond Higley. It's a part of a requirement for the state. And so I think, realistic understanding of the parameters that we're working with is part of the option. Obviously, our goal is to meet the needs of families to the best of our ability, but we also have parameters of non-negotiables we have to work with too. Yeah.
Just, I guess, in your opinion, does it make sense as far as could they make it work? So we know that
they could make
as
it
an
work.
option.
They could make it work. We have larger testing windows, but they're going to have to work with us around those testing windows, and we will get as creative as we can, but we got to follow the guidance that we've got. But the good news is the testing windows, because it's electronic, are larger, but they are in person.
Thank you. And then just one last thing, sorry, is that the meeting in person for the PE, for the physical education, have you gotten a lot of good feedback from that so far as from the parents, or have you had any feedback? I just wonder if people like that.
President Kaler, Board Member Schultz, I'm going to say a little bit of feedback. So We have, of the 25 students, I would say 20 of them are returning students. And so last year, that was the question, what else is going to be available for my child outside of the core curriculum? So not all of them, but I think the consensus right now is they're excited for their kids to have an opportunity for socialization and play. I'm excited because the person that's going to do it was a K-6 PE teacher until he moved to the middle school with me. And so I'm not worried about what they're going to get. I'm excited for them to get him to be able to provide that stuff for him. So feedback, not as much as, maybe I'll get in the future, but I'm really looking forward to, we're doing it on the first Friday, which is July 29th. So I can kind of let you know how it goes.
I think it sounds great, so I
It's
was
a
just
new
wondering.
feature. It's a new feature. They kind of wanted a little more, so this is something he's trying. So we'll get.
Yeah, I think it's great. I just wondered what the feedback was from it. Thank you.
President Kaler, can I do a
ahead.
follow-up question? Something Mrs. Schultz asked, how many testing, besides the big test in the spring, what other testing is required where they're in person? Is CBAS required in person? I don't know exactly which question. Yeah, I mean, I know that the standard test, the big one, whatever we're going to call it, because it may change, right, in the spring, but I was just wondering what other tests have to be in person.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson. So as a middle and elementary school guy, I learned a lot last year. There's CBAS, there's Acadians for our K-3, and that window is typically in August. Then you're going to see similar stuff again around December time, and again, I want to say February or March. And then, of course, those K-6 kids, they don't have a final exam, but then they have the AASA and the AZ-Sci for our fifth graders as well, and that's going to be in April. So they have to come in, I would probably say 5 to 7 times, because some of them are going to take, like CBAS, there's more than one day of it.
So to follow up with Mrs. Schultz, it sounds like they could travel the country and come back just for like 1 week increments 4 times a year or 5 times a year.
There was a young lady, her family lived in, it was a middle school kid, so it's not a K-6, but a middle school kid, was at Sossaman. Dad met with me and said, this is what we're doing. I got my job moved me to Costa Rica. Can my daughter do online school? Of course she can. Can she be back on these dates? If you tell me the dates, she will be back for those tests. So I would say, kind of going with Dr. Foley said, if families want to make it work, they absolutely can.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, and those Acadian tests, that's all connected with Move On Reading. That state statute, we're required to do that. It's part of our K-3 weight funding. So again, there are some of those pieces that are non-negotiable for us, and we have to comply. But we have flexibility, and we can communicate, and we have testing schedules, and John is willing to, if it can be figured out, John will figure it out.
Thank you. The reason I asked that is because I think as we move away from, knock on wood, from COVID, or as we move away from COVID, then maybe there's people that are just looking for flexibility that this program may work from. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. I have one question. So if a teacher in a high school could be already teaching a 6th, 5th, can they also teach online? And are they? And how many are doing that? Because that's like a lot.
Yes, they can
Yes.
have a 6th, 5th. Think about it, if you're looking at the high school structure, I'm going to say it's akin to coaching. It's something above and beyond what they do during the regular day. The 6th, 5th is picking up that prep hour class, and they have that. And then we're not going to deny them the opportunity then to also be a teacher at HV at the same time, because the expectation is they're doing this after their work hours, similar to a coach when he's going to practice, or doing any of those kind of extracurricular activities. Right. It is an additional. And because we pay per student, it is not just a limited stipend saying this is what you're doing. So when we looked at the secondary model, you'll see that the number of kids in the class, and they get paid per student as they go through. So yes, they are able to do that.
Okay, I just think that's a lot, and I appreciate the teachers that have stepped up into that role, because we are short teachers. I mean, that's a nationwide issue, so I'm grateful for those that have stepped up and to know that that is happening. HVA, long time coming to Higley. I know for years we were sending everybody out to everybody else, to all these other online schools, and to keep them in our district is awesome. And I know, Mr. Dolan, from my own personal experience, you have been very flexible, and you are here to help kids and do what's best for them. I appreciate that so very much. And I think that working with the district, I know too, even at a semester change, if there's a student that's struggling in person, you accept them at the semester, and that's huge. So appreciate the flexibility, but also the quality. Sign language, like I've said before, I can retire now from the school board because it's here to stay. I'm grateful for the teacher that returned, so yes, thank you so much. Anything else?
Thank you,
All
guys.
right, thank you. You're a busy man. Next up, we have a safety update, and this is going to be presented by Mr. Walker.
President Kaler, members of the board, as you know, the topic of safety and security is one that we take very, very seriously and that we've been talking about for a very, very long time. Mr. Walker will also be at the rally tomorrow talking about this topic with our employees. You know, last night we sent some communication to our families, and this is one of the things that we are looking forward to providing an update about because, again, yes, in light of recent events, this has become a conversation that we continue to have, but the priority of our safety and security is not something that Higley has not been deeply invested in and that we are take very, very seriously. And so James is going to provide you an update of some proactive things and focuses in this presentation, and we'll be talking more tomorrow with our employees about this topic as well.
Thank you, Dr. Foley. President Kaler, members of the board, I'm here tonight to update you on safety as we head into our new school year. Like Dr. Foley said, safety has been and continues to be top priority in our school district. And if the focus is not on safety, then everything else that we do doesn't matter. And it has to have a safe environment for kids to be able to learn. So I'm going to start off by updating you on some of our standard practices. And then we'll talk about some of our focuses for this past school year, and then some of the things that we're focusing on as we head into the upcoming school year. So as a school district, we comply with standards set forth by the Arizona Department of Education, as well as the Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs. So we are in compliance. We follow a plan that consists of an incident command system where the school district has specified roles and responsibilities to address school safety. We have a district-wide emergency operations plan. And then within that plan, each school site has also an incident command structure that feeds into the system. And then each school site has an emergency plan. And then we work together to ensure that there's proper training and proper roles and responsibilities to address school safety, emergency operations, planning and preparation. And with that, it encompasses a lot. Some of it is your day-to-day, your standard drills that everybody's familiar with. The Arizona Department of Education has expanded their department to social wellness and school safety. So it's connected. So what Ms. Morgan presented on earlier today is the safety component of the psychological safety, the student state of mind, how they're safe in that aspect. And then this component of it is more of the physical building safety and the communication safety. But we work together as a team, and we combine these, and when there's overlap, we ensure that there's systems in place. And that's a big component of the incident command system, is that there's not just roles to address physical building safety, but there's roles to address the students also. So the student safety stays paramount in the planning, as well as the environment for the staff that supports the students. We follow the National Incident Management System, which is a preparedness cycle of continuous improvement. So that's why we do drills, is so we can assess the drills and then discuss what works, what doesn't work, and then reassess and try it again. So that's the format that we follow. And that's the standard that the state wants us to follow. So we do adhere to that. And with that has a monthly evacuation drill. Those are AKA the fire drills. We have quarterly lockdown and shelter-in-place drills. We have a dedicated district safety committee, and then we also have site safety committees, and then those teams meet regularly and report back to one another, and then that's part of that continuous improvement cycle. We have the emergency operation plans, like I stated, in place across the district. We have a fully equipped emergency management trailer that can be deployed. We work frequently with Gilbert Police, and we've begun partnerships with the newly formed Queen Creek Police Department. That's a very exciting component to add to this, because we've established some pretty good relationships immediately with them, and we continue to hope to grow that as we go. And then as being members of the trust, we participate in the consortium. They offer various, both East Valley and then Central Phoenix, opportunities for training, resources, and then connections with my peers and our peers just in the school operations. So we have some very like-minded individuals, and that's a very helpful piece of the puzzle, because we can talk about what we're seeing in our schools, and there's lots of similarities between what's happening in neighboring school districts and peer areas.
Mr. Walker, can I ask you a question real quick on this? Fire drills. There hasn't been a fire in a school, and I can't remember how many years, like 1959 or 64. Is there any talk that these fire drills would become quarterly and not monthly at the state level?
President Kaler, members of the board, we adhere to the fire marshal's dictation for the fire drill, so I haven't heard of any updates, but we don't do it just to do it. We do it because it's set forth by the fire marshal, so, sure. So, you know, we've kind of divided our security and safety focus for the last year to one, physical building safety and security, and then two, communication. So some of our focuses that we've worked with throughout this year for physical building safety is we've developed a reunification protocol that's specific. We've adopted technology, so our iPads have the ability to connect with our student information management system. So within Synergy, there's a functionality called Kiosk View, and you can set up a kiosk with an iPad, and then you can use it. There's a specific function for reunification. So we've procured iPads, and we have a system set up with our information management to be able to deploy technology and tightened up the reunification protocols. We've standardized our two-way radio usage. We've worked with engineers across the district and vendors. We've audited what we have in place for our infrastructure, for our surveillance and security camera usage. We're crafting policy as we speak for appropriate use. We've done some kind of quick fixes where we've implemented security cameras at some of our sites where we've had some incidents throughout the year. And then as the bond states, one of the things we're looking for is a very intentionally focused enterprise-level school safety security surveillance system. And so the director of IT and myself, we've been meeting with various vendors and seeing what they have to offer and being really intentional about how we can plan to appropriately protect everybody's privacy, but at the same time utilize these tools to fortify our schools to be as safe as possible. We have single point entry across all of our school districts. The previous bond was able to utilize modifications of all of our front offices. So all of the offices have essentially kind of like a stage one where they all have two-stage visitor access. So anybody that walks into the school, they're not walking directly into the school. They're coming into an office. They have to check in, be permitted authorization, and then buzzed into the rest of the campus. I know some of the talk has come up about, you know, what better can be done to protect that, and we're very intentional. There's committee meetings and discussions as we speak about how we can better assess and what we can do within reason and time and any restraints to better fortify the single entry process. All the schools are outfitted with a panic button. Panic button will either lock the door and notify the authorities, or lock the door or notify the authorities. And the goal is in the coming weeks that they serve all functions, that they'll notify the authorities and lock the doors upon pressing. They all have the buzzer system, and they all have to gain entry. They have to be accessed through the single point of entry. Again, we have an intentional district committee that looks at it, and that's everybody at the district works together. There's IT, there's facilities, there's finance, the educational services, and so we take these ideas back and we discuss what's doable. And Tyler is very instrumental in helping us to have short-term, midterm, and long-term planning on what we can do to better our schools. We've ensured that first responders will always have access to our schools. They're also known as Knox boxes. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but every school is outfitted with essentially a little safe, and then inside the safe is key access, and we've refreshed and we've audited, and we are ensuring that first responders can access any of our emergency or front office entrances by having access to that box. And so without getting into too much detail about that, it is a secure way that a first responder only can access the school.
Mr. Walker, sorry, real fast. You said that the panic button locks the doors. Aren't the doors already locked? The front door?
The front door.
Okay, so before they would, if there was an emergency, before someone was, or before a threat?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We've also conducted what's called TVAs, or threat vulnerability assessments. So law enforcement agencies work with Homeland Security, and it's not just for schools, but it's for any entity that has gatherings, that they assess and look for vulnerabilities and discuss what can be better to enhance these facilities. And so we've conducted many of those across our district, and then the results of that come directly to us, and then we share that with finance, and cabinet discusses the results and the options that are considered through the vulnerability assessments. The second leg has been our communication focus. So one of the things that I came across in working with Ms. Richards is to be very intentional with not just our school learning day, but all the other things that are happening with our schools, and that's kids club, summer school, athletics, after-school programs. You know, as a Higley parent myself, both of my children use before-school and after-school care. And I know a lot of times, you know, from a parental perspective, school, you drop your kids off, they go to kids club to start off, they leave kids club and go to class, they're dismissed from school at the end of the day, they go back to kids club. For a long time, I think the lens has differentiated those two programs, but I think for all of us parents, it's the same thing. You're dropping your child off at school. We want to ensure that we're having intentional conversations and including everybody that we can to make sure everybody has the same uniform information and they're equipped. Just as a normal school day would be equipped to handle any type of situation. That also transitions into the HCPA as well, because that's another component of our school district that we want to also be intentional to include in our plannings and our discussions. Again, I mentioned the partnerships with our police departments. Working with Gilbert Police, we're able to work with them to have an SRO, a school resource officer, stationed at all of our secondary Gilbert schools. They also have sergeants who serve as roving SROs who patrol, along with their patrol team, all of our elementary schools. Queen Creek has just formed their police department effective this past winter. We have an open letter to the town council in Queen Creek agreeing to help subsidize an SRO, and the hope is that we can work with Queen Creek to procure an SRO at Sossaman, and that also would help to connect with Cortina as well. Additionally, Queen Creek has pledged to us that they do consider our schools as part of their daily routines, and they have been very present on our campuses. So even though we don't have an official SRO in place, we do have a tight relationship that's forming, and they are aware of our school day and our procedures, and are there to help assist within those two schools that lie within Queen Creek.
So have they acknowledged acceptance of the letter, and there's been no response or anything? Okay.
I think they've received the letter. There's a lot of planning and policy making that has to go into making that something that's official.
President Kaler, Board Member Anderson, as you recall, the town only was willing to provide them at a high school. We don't have a high school in Queen Creek, and hence we wrote a letter requesting that they reconsider that and add it so that we could mirror the kind of program that we've been able to provide with the Gilbert. We've yet to have a response yet, but we know that they've received it and are considering.
Dr. Foley, I'm willing to go sit with you if you'd like at a meeting, and we can just put eyes on them, just so they know that we're very engaged in it, and that we would like, so if you would like to take me up on it, I will gladly sit in a meeting with you.
Thank you. Yes, and the town is interested in the partnership, absolutely. So we've had several intentional conversations. It's very productive and healthy with the department. We've also reviewed and we've updated our training materials, our curriculum for what our staff receives. and I'll address that a little bit further in a moment, but we have reviewed what our annual trainings are, what our mandatory trainings are for our staff, and we're working to update the curriculum so it's more intentional and more of a vetted official type of training program. We've refined our 911 internal emergency response, and so all schools have a uniform, essentially relay. If a 911 is called from a Cisco phone within the school district, we're able to immediately identify where it came from, what classroom, what school site, and then the appropriate parties are notified, just to help kind of heighten that level and that layer of who knows and who is aware of what's happening on the campuses. We've also worked with IT and human resources to develop a mass communication tool using our staff directory and what IT has availability to connect the two together. So we do have a lot of good information, but we're just trying to marry the two between IT and HR to be able to have a more intentional staff communication mass tool that will serve for emergency communications. So coming into 2022-23, a couple things that we have happening, and you'll see as the year starts off immediately, a couple successes. I want to thank publicly Teresa and Curtis and the PR department. They're very in tune with our needs and they'll respond very quickly. So we're going to be implementing more intentional signage for our safe hotline. So these are a couple renderings of just mocks. It's not official, but it should go to print in the next couple days and be on our campuses ASAP. So we do have a safe hotline. It's monitored. It's not utilized frequently, to be honest, but hopefully that we become more intentional with our communication so people are more comfortable utilizing that tool. And so we're going to have signage around our campuses. It's going to direct, there's a safe hotline number, there's a safe hotline email, and we're also incorporating a safe hotline QR code that will send to a survey, so an anonymous report can be also sent. So you'll be seeing this information. Our teachers and our administrators will be given some more information on how and what this looks like in the process behind that. And then we're also going to be intentional with safety reminders, quick references throughout our schools. And so you may have seen these in other school districts. This is something that we've also developed. It's another example. It's not formalized yet, but soon it will be. And then this will be posted across all of our campuses. So it doesn't give the specifics of our drills, so it's not releasing anything that's private, but it also is guiding people for best practices. So in a pinch, it's just another tool for communication. It's not the only thing, but it's just an additional tool in our toolbox. And then included on these will also be, if you're talking safety, it's going to include the safe hotline and the QR code. All the information will be on these as well, just to keep that communication kind of consistent and mindful.
Mr. Walker, is the suicide prevention hotline on that as well, the 988 that has now changed? Would that be on those? No, okay.
President Kaler. Mr. Walker, now that the suicide hotline is 3 numbers, can we look at putting the safe hotline on our student IDs as well, or at least the QR code on their ID? If we put a very small QR code that they can scan with their phone for the safe hotline, because I know we're required to have the suicide hotline, and now just last week that changed to 3 numbers. So is it possible that that's something we can look at going forward, that have it on their student ID so it's right there?
Sure. President Kaler, Board Member Reese, one of the things that the safe hotline, it's not the emergency number though. So we want to be intentional that, because it's not manned live 24/7. So there also is language that if there is an emergency to call 911, I think we can include the new suicide emergency response number. And we just need to be intentional about our communication, because we don't want somebody to scan the QR code and submit something thinking that it's manned 24/7. What's manned 24/7 is 911. So we can definitely have those discussions. And it's a good point, but we want to also be intentional to have the appropriate communication for that as well.
And I think talking with Dr. Foley the other day, 988, it's not quite up to speed as far as those, that quick, the texting number is still very much up to date, and there's a quicker response, but the 988 is so brand new that it's not something we might want to put out just yet, but maybe in the future as it develops, it would be something that we would look into further.
would mirror the conversation we had earlier about the amount of resources available to support the demand and the need. So the idea is a great one, but you got to have the resources and the infrastructure funded and supported behind it to respond accordingly. And I know that that's something that they are working to accommodate as quickly as possible at the state level. But we are hopeful that we actualize the intention.
Mr. Walker, on that flyer, does it say it's not manned 24 hours a day?
President Kaler,
Yeah, does it say that it's just a reporting tool and that this isn't to be used in an emergency?
We indicate on there that you are to call the police after hours if it is an immediate emergency.
Fantastic. That's all I wanted.
We
'Cause
indicate on
if
that.
you were just a parent or someone and thought, oh, this will be answered right away, that would be obviously detrimental. So thank you.
yeah, Board Member Wilson, it is, I know you're far away, but it is on here. Yeah, and that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. So I just wanted to make sure that it's indicated somewhere on there that it's not manned 24 hours a day. So somebody isn't reporting it like they would to 911 or to
Correct.
a police officer. Thank you.
I was just asking, that number is a district line. It is manned by district personnel.
Correct. The SAFE hotline is the see something, say something. If you're concerned about bullying, if you're concerned about saying something unsafe, and if you don't want, you're afraid to go and talk to somebody, but want to report it anonymously, this is one of the ways we can do this. We've always had this SAFE hotline, but one of the things that we want to do is make sure people are aware that this is one of the ways that if you are aware of something and you're not sure, report it. And this is one of the ways you can do it, and that during the school day, between 7 to 5 a day, someone will be able to see it and respond. But if it's an emergency, you need to call 911. But this is the helping make people aware about our district SAFE hotline is one of the components that we're adding.
Who's manning it? Or are y'all saying that right now? Or?
There are two district individuals who are monitoring that at this moment. You have an HR director and Mr. Walker.
So earlier I mentioned that we are intentionally working on our training. We're happy to announce that we've adopted Vector Solutions. It was formerly known as Safe Schools. That was recommended through the trust to us. What it has is vetted, developed training programs and an extensive library. Back to school every year, our teachers and our staff complete mandated trainings on all sorts of topics. And it's been kind of piecemealed in the past. It's been the correct information, it just hasn't been from a single source. And now we actually have the ability to work with that, and it's a more intentional, easier to manage, to track, to communicate, to send out trainings. And so that's going to be rolled out for this year for our teachers. And then that aligns with, again, the school safety and social wellness idea, and working with Ms. Morgan and counseling services. A component of school safety is threat assessment, is crisis response, is our counseling services. And so that's something it's not really highlighted again in this presentation, but it's something that's very intentional that is part of our school year. So the Vector Solutions platform is going to be something that will help us to be able to be more intentional with our training. We're looking to digitalize a visitor management system and implement a process where it's, currently we use a visitor's log where somebody comes to a campus and they sign in on clipboard and it's paper-based. And we want to advance to something that will be able to track. And this can also connect with our student information management. So we could be more intentional about who's on our campuses and when they leave. And so we'll be able to track that and identify that. We're consistently reviewing, again, talking about the threat vulnerability assessment, but just our campus physical security in general. We're being very intentional about those security reviews. So it's not just facilities, but it's facilities and student services and counseling services, and then also finance and educational services. So we look at things like lobbies and gates and arrival time and dismissal time, and we're constantly reevaluating that, and we'll continue to do so throughout the school year. We want to be more intentional about grant opportunities. There's a lot of grant funding opportunities out there. I've been working with Ms. Rushkamp, our Director of Finance, and Mr. Moore, our CFO, to be more intentional about what type of opportunities are out there, because they can help me with the financial component of it, but I can help them with the content that needs to be included. And so we've been very intentional and had to have several meetings to discuss how can we see what's out there, how can we explore that better, how can we be more equipped to apply for and then be accepted for these grant opportunities for school safety. Again, our bond focus has a very specific safety component. I've been working with IT and finance to be prepared to have enterprise-level surveillance, updated access controls, key card access for our doors, and a refresh of our two-way communication systems. Same thing for visitor management. We're looking to advance our volunteer management as well. So we currently have an individual who manages that and does the checks and keeps it through a spreadsheet, but there's ways to advance that and be more intentional, and that's another thing that's on deck for this upcoming year. And then one of the things that we've just launched is we've launched a school safety webpage, and so that was put forth. It has kind of your basics. Again, you know, some of the school safety protocol, emergency response, we don't want to share that. We want to make sure that that's something that we keep internally so we can use it appropriately and it doesn't, you know, essentially fall into the wrong hands. But our school district website is going to be a place for communication. It's going to be a place for our staff, for our families to go to and get updates. It's going to have some information about emergency operations, about student reunification, and you'll find some helpful things that would help for safety in general. Here comes the bus. The code of conduct will be on there. Some information about our school resource officers. So again, through Gilbert, there's 2 sergeants who work with us, and then there's 3 assigned officers. So that's 5 Gilbert police officers that we want to be intentional with. Again, some information about our single point of entry, our weapons and drug policy, our safety drills, and then some reminders to make sure that the most accurate and correct information is updated in our system. So if we do need to communicate, that we're on the same page. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions? Mrs. Anderson, did you want to go?
I appreciate all the efforts you have gone through to make our sites and staff more safe, our students more safe. There's been updates, the front door, the procedures and the changes, but, as an educator and of course as a parent, from the incidences I've seen, I don't see a lot of people just walking in through the front door. So I look forward to funding or innovative ways or strategies or anything to, look at the other ways that these people are coming on campus unnoticed. You can lock a door, you can build a fence, people are going to get in. But I don't want to make any efforts already in place look like that they're minimal. They're definitely important, but we're not done, and we need to do more. Staffing is huge. Accountability for people that are either not reporting or breaking laws to get on sites, but I go to school, and this is always discussed with the teachers. We're always having the conversation. We're always fearful, and I shake right now thinking about it. But I just want everybody to hear, this is just something that's just going to continue to be something that we're going to have to address. And no matter what we put in place, it's. I'm not saying we're not giving up, but I'm just saying it's a real concern. And so I also want to lead into the reporting on the paper. Make it real. Don't look at a piece of paper and think, oh, it's another colorful diagram and I'm not going to report it, or it's just another whatever. If you see something, say something. We all have to work together. Don't leave it to the responsibility of one staff member or to the district office, or don't leave it to our emergency responders. Let's all take care of each other. And I'll just leave it at that. And thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Mrs. Anderson, and I was just going to piggyback off that, and I agree with what you said, and the whole see something, say something, and just being able to share that more freely on our campuses and educating our staff, our students. The health and wellness initiative is huge. I concur that it's just not in schools. It's happening in our churches. It's happening in our grocery stores. It's happening in places that we don't think it will happen. And so it's so important that we take those signs very seriously. And it's hard to put into words exactly what I want to say here, but I think everybody knows exactly what I'm thinking is that there's usually signs, and we don't want to miss those. So, and I'll end with that.
President Kaler.
Go ahead.
I was just going to, again, kind of piggyback on that. That goes teaching our students and communicating with our students that posts on social media aren't jokes. Don't take them as jokes. And you don't have to physically be on campus to see something. You see something on social media. You know, I encourage our students to talk to our parents. You know, talk to your parents. I saw this. This is concerning. I saw this and I'm worried. Get this reported, and don't just think, oh, well, you know, they say this stuff all the time, because at this point, you don't know, you just don't know. You don't know what's real, you don't know what's not real. And as kids and people outside of it, that's not our job to determine if it's real or not real. That's what the authorities are for. And so it's really important on social media, because in the past, we would hear so many things. Oh yeah, so-and-so saw something on social media. They saw it on Instagram. They saw it on Snapchat. They saw this, they saw that. And then you're like, well, has anyone said anything? And they're like, oh no. And it was like, what are you doing? I mean, and we've been fortunate, don't get me wrong, but we really need to, that really needs to be discussions with our students, and that there is no joke, and that if you see something on social media, you need to report that. Include your parents. Report it to a teacher. This hotline, 911, but don't think it's not real. So.
I agree. I feel like you guys have said it all really well. I think our students can see something, say something, and report to that same hotline. They don't have to directly go to their parents if they're afraid. So I think that's would be a very encouraging thing to put out to our students. See something, say something as well. Mr. Walker, I had a question regarding parking lots. It's become a dangerous place for our crossing guards. It's become a dangerous place for our students. Those parking lots are scary. The school zones, are we getting extra help from Gilbert Police to monitor the school zones, like to keep it limited to 15 or to 25, 35, wherever you are? I was wondering if we were getting extra support from Gilbert PD and Queen Creek PD on that, and then how can we help do better in our parking lots for the drop-off, pickup craziness that lies in 15 minutes of everybody's day.
President Kaler, Board Member Wilson, one of the things that does come up, the school drop-off pickup, and as a parent myself, it's challenging at times. It is nerve-wracking, and we want everybody to be safe. And there are, especially at an elementary school, there's 5 and 6-year-old kids. So one of the things that I've had several conversations with the police department about what's happening. We can always call the police if we feel that there's traffic laws being violated. So that's one of the things that we've done. We've had situations where there is specific reoccurring instances, and so they'll send patrol out to come and take a look if there's an instance that needs to be reevaluated. I know Mr. Crosby in transportation is very instrumental in that process, because he knows the adjacent ways and the structure of streets and protocols better than anybody in the district. Another recommendation from Gilbert is the Gilbert has a 311 app. And what you can do on the 311 app is you can make a report, and you can do it for all types of things. Like if your trash doesn't get picked up on garbage day, you can, send a notice out. But one of the things you can also do is request assistance. And so what that does, the way it's been explained to me by the police department, is that creates essentially a queue, and then the queue then gets delegated from the 311 operators if it goes to Public Works or if it goes to the police department. And so if you were to call non-emergency and say, hey, I have some concerns about the school, they can send somebody out, but they can't really send somebody out the next day. They'll respond to it. 311 will create this ongoing lingering item in the queue, and it has to get cleared out. And so the way that the police have presented it, that it's just another step in the process that it can document an area, and if it continues to get documented, then it raises awareness also. So, that's a tricky spot because we have we communicate, we try to communicate from the school about best practices, but we're also not equipped to enforce traffic laws. At the same time, it gets a little bit tricky. So if somebody wants to disregard what we're asking, then we need to work with the police to help better enforce that as well.
And that brings up a good point. I think in the spring, we had seen some people, we've seen videos of people not following the bus stop for the buses. And Mr. Crosby, I know, was handling that. But I think that's a good point as well. Those crossing guard or those stop signs actually mean stop for our community members. So there are kids crossing, and you don't want to be the one who hits a kid. So thank you.
I think that in my neck of the woods, they just put the vehicle's picture on social media, and usually that does something. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying it happens in our area quite a bit. But yeah, parking lots since forever, and children's parking lots, and parents in a hurry. It just doesn't work well. So maybe if everybody could just slow down, take a breath, and know that it's going to be over in just a few more minutes, and everybody will move on. Or I remember from a long time ago, a principal said, just come 10 minutes later, then school gets out. It's like dead. Then pick up your kid and just go in and go out, and there's no line. But if our parents are lining up 30 minutes before school gets out, then that just snowballs. So any other comments?
I just want to say, if we expect our kids to go into school and follow directions and listen to teachers, we should also follow the directions, because you can't tell them what to do and then not follow the directions.
Well said. Go ahead, Mrs. Anderson.
Thank you. So is it ever possible for all the land, I'm going to talk about Coronado because I'm just familiar with that area, and I was crossing guard there forever. There's 2 lanes, one forward, one backwards, and then it builds up on the streets. Children are crossing, parents are crossing, children are walking, riding their bikes. But there's just rock and tree debris collection and weed collection. Why cannot a pull lane be put in to these areas? Why are we just sitting on the? And that's not the only school, so why not? I know it's funding, but is it beyond that?
Okay.
But so it still can't be built on, ever.
So President Kaler, Board Member Anderson, some of those are adjacent ways in which there have been some of the schools that we have worked with to do. Some of them you can and some of them you can't. And as you know, we have had conversations we've been talking about over here at Higley High School and working with the re-trafficking of that. There'll be an update about that soon. These processes take a long time to do because you're also working with the city, you're working with multiple individuals and approval processes for that and additional funding. So those things can take a while, but I know that every place that we can or need to, we explore where we can. In some cases you cannot. But there have been several of our schools where those have been utilized and re-trafficked and repurposed for that. And we find that it makes a big difference. And oftentimes parents do feel like they're going in a maze around the whole school, but that is one of the ways that we manage the traffic flow and the pickup place. But it does take time. And there are places where we can and then places where we can't, and there are multiple entities that we involve. So all avenues are being explored. The issue is, and I think the important thing is, we've talked about this a lot when we talked about bond projects, these things don't happen overnight. There's multiple entities, permits, fundings, sources that require a lot of time and forethought, so they don't happen immediately. And that's part of the process, and frustration at the same time.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Walker. Appreciate your help. And we'll see you in a little bit. All right, so moving on to our action items. I move that the governing board approves the revised expenditure budget number 1 for fiscal year 2022-2023 as presented.
Second.
Jill, second. Any other questions on this? We've beat it. What's the word? The dead horse? Like a dead horse? We have really gone over this budget a lot. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next up, some exciting news here. I move that the governing board approves the extension of the term of the superintendent's contract with the requested modifications to June 30th, 2025.
Second.
I think we'll all say third, fourth, and fifth up here. I think there's no questions or concerns. Dr. Foley, you have been instrumental in making Higley better and better each and every day, and we are grateful for you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Dr. Foley. That was fun. I move for our 9.3, I move that the governing board approves the intergovernmental agreement between Maricopa County Community College and Higley Unified School District for the 2022-2023 school year. This is an annual intergovernmental agreement that we vote on every year. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. As you can see, we still have some things coming up in August. We're also going to have a special education program update. I believe that's going to be coming up soon. And a CTE update. Is there anything else that the board would like to see on a future agenda? Okay, that's good.
President Kaler, board members, as you know, that these are just additional. We have lots of our annual important updates that are not listed there. These are just additional things that are in addition to. So lots coming forward.
I appreciate you guys coming before the safety update and coming in before school starts to get staff or employees and parents and students up to date on what's going on. Thank you for that.
All right, with that, we are going to move on. I move that the governing board, pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A8, the governing board will meet in executive session with the members of the leadership team for discussion or consideration of matters relating to safety, school safety operations, or school safety plans or programs.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0, and we will be adjourning our meeting in executive session. So thank you and good night.